Hi there, you look great. Welcome to Shows What You Know, your television podcast. That's podcast in audio and video, because yes, we do both. We're sexy that way. My name is Jakob Burrows.
And I am Jim Scampoli, and this week we are talking about American Gods, Season 1, Episode 1 through Episode 3.
That is correct. Oh, I'm pretty excited and scared to discuss this with you as someone who read the book a long time ago. I'm a fan of Neil Gaiman, and I'm excited and also a bit scared. We will be doing a spoiler-free discussion first, so don't worry. This is all for everyone to enjoy and decide if this is a show for you. And then once we've gone through the spoiler-free stuff, we're going to get into the details, as Jim said, of 1 through Episode 3, which are all that are out now. What is your feeling coming into this, Jim?
I will not be watching any more of American Gods.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, gosh. Okay, well, that's...
I shan't be watching further episodes of American Gods.
Oh no. Everyone, Jim's leaving us.
I mean, at least that's what I'm thinking right now. This show is clearly for people that have read the book, and that's it.
That's pretty fair. I've seen a lot of glowing reviews of this show, and I was not on board at first, and towards episode 3 or so, it was kind of winning me over a bit more. I assume you were driven further into your confused hate spiral by then, or
no? Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. I know I started off very negative. There are definitely
Yes.
there are definitely a lot of moments in this show that I like. Honestly, any of the like vignettes or the separate things I like.
Mm-hmm.
Because I guess it feels like I'm getting kind of a story there.
Yeah.
Because at least with some of those stories, even though they don't fully end, I feel like there's like a thing, a middle, and some sort of conclusion, or at least know what's going on.
Yeah.
Shadow Moon, is that his name?
That is his name.
Boring piece of garbage. Each episode kind of has its own like opening with a thing going on, and
Yes,
I love
What's the show about, Jim? For those who don't know. Maybe that's a too difficult question to answer.
Yeah, I have no idea. I have no idea what this show's about. I mean, I can glean from the title. It's about American Gods.
Sure.
Now, maybe like that's this show's way of being like, you fucking idiot. You don't know about like Egyptian gods, and you don't know what we're referencing here because you don't know your like different religious history and all that. Well, go screw American Gods, okay?
Okay.
Because I don't care. You got a leprechaun or something, which I even did read that people that read the books are kind of annoyed about that because they're like, this guy's not supposed to be a leprechaun, but the show's making it seem like he's a fucking leprechaun. But I don't know what this show's about. I don't know what they're trying to do. And I don't mind that. Even 3 episodes in, I wouldn't mind that in a show if it felt intriguing to me, but it's not.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would say something along the lines of like, Jim, what? You need the show to hold your hand the whole way? What? You gotta have everything explained to you? Why can't you just go with the flow? But as someone who did read the book, and I know I have more of a grasp of what's going on and where the story is heading and where it should be heading, and I agree. Pretty much. I mean, as I said, it's starting to win me over a bit. But as far as the main concern you're raising, yes, it doesn't feel like there's much of a plot going on, given we're only discussing 3 episodes. But then again, that is 3 hours more or less of time. That's more than, you can get a story going in that time. Some of it is in these little vignettes, which are their own separate stories, which may come together more as we move on, or maybe not. But yes, as you said, those actually, usually I feel like I would be annoyed by something like that, where a story goes off, now we're going to do this. But it is kind of like the main plot that is the least, feeling like a plot, and then we go off and do something else, and it's actually refreshing, and that's kind of worrying. At the same time, it was kind of turning me. But yeah, I see where you're coming from, Jim. You're not crazy.
Well, and I mean, don't get me wrong. I get what's going on for the most part. Like, yeah, these are people that are gods, and this is a regular novel, not a graphic novel, correct?
Correct.
but it comes off at least it comes off as some sort of edgy graphic novel from like the early 2000s, where it's like, what if gods were like this? What if a god was like that? Where everything was just like what they would do was say like fables and stuff like that. Where what if Snow White was like a hooker? That's what it would really be like.
Right, yeah.
And I get the sense of that with this show. Like, what if God was just a fucking alcoholic, right, dude? Whoa, can you even imagine? Because he's been living here forever. He doesn't even remember his old past.
Yeah, dude.
Oh man, he's like a pimp. Oh, he's a pimp, bro. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm sure the source material has a little bit more going on than that. And truthfully, I've actually never read any Neil Gaiman. I'm familiar with the name, obviously.
Right. That was gonna be my question. You didn't read Sandman? Because it's a lot like Sandman as well, which is obviously a graphic novel he did, which is sort of also about mythological figures and faith and, you know, real life and magic realism and combining all that stuff. And I think the main thing that this show suffered from for me in the first few episodes was that I think in text, it's relatively easy to build a mood. Like, you only need to be good at writing, and you're going to be able to basically make something suspenseful or intriguing when it's about mysterious figures and so on. But like when it's a TV show, there's so many more factors that could be a little bit off so that it doesn't feel as intriguing. That's what was happening for me. People were talking a lot about the visual style being great, and I wasn't feeling that at all. Unfortunately, I wasn't sold. It felt like computer animated a lot of stuff that should have been more mysterious and maybe done, you know, with practical effects, even though that's obviously more expensive and so on. But basically, if you're Neil Gaiman, being mysterious is your wheelhouse. That's what you do, and you're great at it. And then you have to convert that into this show, which is also suffering from that original material is very hard to adapt, I can imagine, because it's kind of sprawling and all over the place. And indeed, HBO, as far as I remember, they tried doing like 3 different scripts before giving up on American Gods, and then Starz took it over and did their thing. And not to say that HBO was right, but I can see how it's definitely a challenge to bring this to the screen because, as I said, there's a lot of factors. It's hard to make things spooky when in text you can write a line and it doesn't feel like bullshit, but if someone says it, it might feel like bullshit. Do you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, well, and especially because I don't feel like this show's really that mysterious. And maybe it's because of Shadow Moon, because I remember beforehand you told me like, well, there's gods, but then there's kind of this regular guy who's like an audience surrogate, but Shadow Moon is far from an audience surrogate to me. He's rarely intrigued by what's going on, which reads very false to me. Like and they play back and forth where Shadow Moon is like a crazy thing happens, but then he's still a skeptic. Like 3 episodes in, he's still a skeptic with all these things going on.
Yeah.
But he's also not even very for a skeptic. He's barely interested in what's happening.
That's true. But he's too cool for school, for sure.
And I mean, I don't think this is a spoiler, but like to the point where me not knowing the source material, I just assume Shadow Moon is just a god that forgot that he's a god. Because, and then I kept being like, so this guy's a god. He just doesn't know he's a god, but then sometimes he knows and sometimes he doesn't. Wait, no, he's a regular guy. Like I have no idea what's going on with this dude. I just assume he's also a god. And he just forgot because he's, lived forever or whatever. So, you get resets every now and then. But then also I don't really even care. Yeah. I don't care about Shadow Moon at all. And I don't know if they're just trying to play him so cool because he's never once bewildered by things that are happening. I mean, maybe one point a little bit in episode 3, he's kind of like, did I do that? But even then he's still kind of like, did I do that? Like, I don't know. I don't know if it's just this actor or if that's how they're directing him. But in the end, it's not really mysterious. It's not kind of like, ooh, I wonder what's going on. It's kind of like, I get the gist. These are old gods here in America that have elements of just regular people, and this in the same way that regular people are good and bad and misleading or whatever. That's what these gods are like. They just happen to be gods that have been around forever.
Mm-hmm.
But then at the same time, it's like, so why do I care? Because I don't know what's like. The clear thing, the one thing that they're not really being clear on, it's like Shadow Moon seems like he's supposed to be important, but we don't really know why.
Yeah.
Mr. Wednesday or whatever, is that the character's name?
That's what they call him, Ian McShane. What do you think about him?
I mean, he's having fun. You can see that he's having fun.
Talking about the actor, right?
Yeah, the actor. Yeah, the actor's having fun. And there are almost elements where I care about what's going on, but since it's so clear that, like, you can't really trust him, but can you?
Yeah.
It's hard to really get into, like, what's happening. And plus, everything has to be so vague. But there's a difference between something being mysterious and something being vague. And that's what... And I hate to reference this show that we always reference all the time, but Legion, it's very reminiscent of Legion to me, because it's not that I'm wondering what's going on with a mystery. It's just more like you're being confusing, and that's not
the same
making
thing,
me excited. Yeah.
I see what you mean, especially because Ian McShane is like, he's a bit too trying to do, or the character, not the actor, but it's kind of like both ways. Like, he's being mysterious, but he's also being like, I don't know. I think he's a great actor who is best when he's playing some sort of authority figure, in my mind. I saw him in a show called Kings, short-lived, that also had the same executive producer, Michael Green here, was showrunner. No, he's showrunner here, was executive producer there, whatever. But, he's a tyrant in that, and he works really well when he's, like, very firm and, like, a character. Like, he's got such an expressive face, and, like, he's great at that. But here it's kind of, he's almost acting like he's a leprechaun, like, oh, it might be like this and it might be like that. Oh, what have I got in my pocket? I speak in riddles. So but at the same time, he's supposed to have like something deep underneath where it's power and that, but he's also like a fun, wacky character, and that's a hard balance to strike. And what you mentioned about Shadow, even a harder thing to do, because I think what they're going for is making him like a strong silent type, but I don't know if it's the actor or directing or whatever that doesn't quite deliver that fully. I think that's, or at least maybe I'm speaking just from the book, that's more the idea where we have a point of view character who is more, he's hard as nails, and that's why he's not ruffled by anything, but inside he's like, what the fuck? Okay, I guess I'll do. And his wife, something happened with that. So no spoilers. So something happened with that. So he's kind of like in shock and feeling weird about stuff and not anchored. And that's why he's up in the air. But it's a long time to spend up in the air and unsure of what's going on.
And especially because when we meet him before anything happens, he's exactly the same.
Yes.
So there's no way, and I get it's because they probably have to get into the plot or whatever, but either way, there's no way to discern, because I did kind of start thinking like, oh, because of what's happening, but then also I just felt like I was filling in gaps that wasn't there. And yes, in a book, it's way easier to be in a character's head. But like when you're adapting something, you should be thinking about that, and that needs to be, you got to put it on the screen. I mean, and not to be one of these dicks, but I honestly feel like if someone's loving this and they haven't read the book, there's an element there. I'm not saying that they don't really like it. Of course, someone can really like it, but I feel like there's an element there where you're like, I don't want to look dumb, so I'm gonna say I like this because.
Well, yes, and also there are people who are more optimistic who like are excited about what this show might become preemptively.
Sure,
but I see what you mean.
I just mean in the respect to like kind of an understanding of what's going on, because if you don't know what this god is, what are you, an idiot? What are you, stupid? You don't get what they're referencing here. What do they have to spell it out for you? And I mean, of course, I'm not saying that's the only thing, but I feel like there's got to be some elements there, because if you haven't read the source material, I feel like there's a lot of issues, at least with these first few episodes, in an era with so much content to view. It's not grabbing me. I could totally see if I read the book, I'd probably be loving this shit. I'd be like, hell yeah. Oh, that's that. Oh shit, that's hinting at this.
Yeah.
And maybe in the end, like maybe if this was a show that was released on Netflix or something where you can kind of binge it a bit more, maybe it would play better that way. Or hey, if you disagree with me, you could just say that I'm the idiot. But I feel like there's a lot of issues. Oh, and one thing I do know, at least without knowing the source material, I know Brian Fuller, showrunner. He also was showrunner on Hannibal and like Pushing Daisies and Dead Like Me, and he's definitely in full-on season 3 Hannibal mode here, because that's another thing. The visuals aren't as interesting to me because he's done this stuff. Having the weird animal come out and be a creepy thing in slow motion, and it means this. Having the gore and like the slow-mo gore, like it's exactly kind of what they were doing with Hannibal, except in Hannibal there was more cannibalism going on. But it doesn't come off as anything new and fresh to me. I mean, between that and between even like to an extent Legion, to bring that up again, like it's awesome. It's awesome that we can get TV shows that are going high-end visual like this. So I do appreciate I do see that they are building a vibe, and I understand that, and I do appreciate it. But I'm sick of these shows that just concentrate on that, and then they figure like, well, what are you complaining about? Don't you see these visuals? Don't you see what we're doing? Film and television is a visual storytelling, and that's completely true. But give me something for the characters, please. I need something on the characters. I don't need to be plot, whatever, but I need something where I give a shit about some of these characters. And I will say that they succeed in some of these little vignettes that they do, where I'm kind of interested in that. But then when we go back to Shadow Moon, I'm checking out, unfortunately.
So you said you might like it a lot if you knew the source material. I did know the source material when I watched it, but I still see a lot of the issues you were describing, although I'm sure I was more forgiving of it, and especially towards the third episode, as I said, I was more on board. Maybe because like half that episode is spent in vignettes, as we were saying, like these coming to America bits or somewhere in America bits. There's like, it's almost half the episode in the third one, and both of those are pretty good. But also, I think for me, it felt like there was more plot picking up towards the end of episode 2 and episode 3. I do understand, though, if you don't feel that way, but I was a bit more in with what was happening with Shadow and Wednesday. But I think that's about it for spoiler-free discussion. We should get more into the details now, right? What do you think?
Absolutely. Let's get into, I mean, I know we said no spoilers, but we might say this a lot. I don't know if you can even spoil this show, all right? So let me get that out of the hand, but also say, from here on out, will be spoilers.
Yes, I know. I mean, that sounds negative. It's like, this trash could not even be described.
Yeah, I don't mean it that way, but I just mean like we know so little anyways.
That's true.
It's true.
Like, I sorry to cut you off, but I could spoil it because I know the book, but we're not getting into any book spoilers, and it's only the first 3, so it's almost unfair to judge it at this point. However, we don't care. We're judging it anyway, and we're going to go into the details of episodes 1 through 3.
Absolutely. Starting now.
Yes, so it started with Vikings arriving in the New World. It started with one of these coming to America type stories. What was your first impression when you started watching?
I liked it. I liked it. I mean, you just get a hint that, they found this new world, but there's some power there that's kind of got them spooked, and also like warning, like don't come any closer. And so you see a little of that, like I assume some sort of god that's keeping them away, but then they're also worshiping their own god to get away, and then it's pitting person versus person for the god of war. Like, I liked what it was setting up and what it was doing. So yeah, I like almost all of these like opening vignettes I liked.
That's interesting, because this one, I maybe it's our different, we're coming at it from different directions, but I wasn't in love with it to start with, or like I didn't like it because I kind of had this vibe in my head. Obviously, I had this idea of what the show might be or what I thought it would be, and I immediately felt a bit worried, a bit like, oh, this is what they're doing. It felt almost cartoonish when there's like a million arrows hitting one guy, and then the gore, which I don't mind gore, I enjoy it, but it felt malplaced in a way. The blood didn't look realistic. It was like computer effects all over the place for this what should be quite, I felt like there could have been more realism in the stuff that's actually realistic, and then when you go into fantastical stuff, that'll make it more, I don't know, make it pack more of a punch. But now it's like the over-the-top visual stuff is kind of on everything in a way.
Sure.
Maybe that's speaking more of the show in general than the opening. But yeah, I wasn't like super on board with the Viking stuff. And why did they all like kill each other instead of go fight the arrow people? They could all die.
I thought
way.
that was kind of their tribute to their war god, basically, to show that they're willing to battle each other for help from their god.
Sure, but they weren't willing to battle their enemies. Who were even shooting the arrows? Some other gods?
I just read that because, I mean, given, like, all I'm going on is that this is the intro to the show, so I figured they were setting a vibe, so I'm open at this point, so I'm going along with it. And yeah, I read it as there's a powerful god that's keeping them from going onto this land, and where that looked like certain death, they could battle each other for their own personal worship for help, and at least some of them would survive. And that's what, like, they're like sacrificing their eyes and stuff, like just showing their worth. And at least that would be like, for the greater good of a few to survive, rather than fighting that other god would be just certain death for everyone. I guess it does make sense. It sets pretty much a good vibe. Well, maybe I didn't love the vibe, but it like tells you what the show is going to be about in a fairly concise way, and I think it makes sense. Then we move on to the prison and Shadow Moon in prison. Did your feelings start to change at this point? A little bit, because again, I can't tell if Shadow Moon is a god or his wife is a god, because trippy things are happening to him without anyone else, really interfering or doing anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he's just like looking at her in the ceiling, and in a show like this, I can't just think that as a dream or whatever, because that shit just happens with the gods as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely losing me, because again, I just kept being like, it took me a long time to be like, oh, this guy is supposed to be just a guy. Yeah. I just assumed it was another god because we're seeing all these gods in America.
Well, before he even is like going to meet, before he's meeting any gods, anything, he's having like this dream of skulls, place.
Oh yeah, and like a tree of life, and
and like the trees are reaching for him, like computer animated trees, and this is also part of what I was saying, that I didn't like the visual look that much. But yeah, it's for sure supernatural stuff going off from the get go. I guess that's what I meant by if they don't set a baseline of realism, it's like what do we care? Like, how do we know what's real, what to care about if there's nothing that feels real? So maybe that's it. Maybe it doesn't feel real enough.
Plus, Shadow Moon has the most god name of any character in this show.
True.
And I guess that's probably the source material, but no one's just Shadow Moon, unless you're also just a god. So you're way more of a god than Mr. Wednesday.
This is not really a spoiler, but I mean, I think I was thinking the same thing when I read the book originally, when I was, 10, and I was like, Shadow, you're trying to pull a fast one on us. And I've even done like similar mistakes in my writing where someone reads it and they go like, well, this character is clearly like a magician or something. No one has this name. I'm like, okay, well, that's fair. I guess we'll name him Mike. So yeah, we're in the prison. Eventually gets out because his wife has passed away. So, he goes to the airport to go home. And that's when we meet Mr. Wednesday, who's conning his way onto the airplane, which is one of those scenes where I don't remember the source material that clearly, but for me it was unbelievable that it worked, the con he was pulling, because he's just acting weird, and then they're like, we'll put you in first class. And I'm like, I don't know, it didn't feel believable, and not because he's a god, it just didn't feel realistic at all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess there's some sort of statement on how people react to someone who might be less than, I guess, to be a little correct on it.
Well, I mean, it didn't add up to me. I mean, I like the idea of like a traveling con man god, but it's just the con needs to be realistic. The one we get in episode 3 is much better as far as that. It's a little more believable than this. But anyway, Shadow gets on the plane and he ends up next to Wednesday.
Yes, I mean, but not to jump around a bit, but it's kind of like, if you could make things happen, why are you even doing these cons?
Yeah, but that's the thing. I guess he can make things happen. Like, what can Wednesday do? Has he shown any powers?
Well, I guess he can make like what they hint at is like he can make things happen if he has like someone believing. Apparently, I mean, just going off of what the show's given me.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean, I suppose so. But has he actually done? How much supernatural stuff has Wednesday done?
Well, he told a man to think about it snowing, and then it snowed.
Yeah, but arguably, I mean, they hint pretty heavily that Shadow's the one who made that happen rather than Wednesday. That's how I felt they played it, because he's like, did I make it snow? And he's like, oh,
he kissed an old lady, and then it started raining.
That is true. And she asked, what did you do? So yes, I guess he's like Superman, basically. But
I mean, I'm sure there's more like nuance to it, but it's like, we know he's a god, so we know he has some other powers. And also, like, it's hinted that he somehow made it so Shadow Moon would be sitting up next to him. You know what I mean? Like,
that is true.
Through chance or whatever type thing he did. Like, I mean, I'm going off of just what the show's shown me, but there's enough there to show. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he needs some help for things to go along, but it's just bizarre because it's this weird back and forth of like, we need a payphone, but we also need it to snow. And I didn't even really get that. What, people would just give them their ATM cards because it was snowing and it was out of order? I didn't even understand that, but, you know, we'll get there.
Yeah. Well, they were there to make deposits, so he was taking...
Is that what it was?
Yeah, that's what it was.
Oh. Who makes deposits at an ATM? You use direct deposit. You only take money all right, whatever.
Yeah, this is a pretty old book. Before we had, I don't know, credit cards.
The payphone should have been a dead giveaway. Well, it's just weird because like no one makes, at least people do, but not on a regular fashion where people are making deposits. It's direct deposit. Step your fucking game up, American gods.
Well, yes, but in a way, like it's a slightly older book, but they have updated some stuff, like the new. What we might call them new gods, these creatures who are on TVs and stuff. They've clearly been updated since it was a while since the book was written. So, you know, everyone has a phone with just a computer and blah, blah, blah. That wasn't the case when this book was written.
Yeah, which is the thing that comes off as like, not to be like I guess a jaded, you know, media devourer, like, it's like I've seen, you know, I read a lot of comics, I watch a lot of TV shows, I watch a lot of movies. So making your half-assed, like, TV is the new god, it just comes off as kind of hacky to me. Yeah. And given I should probably give this a little bit more leeway because it's, you know, I guess, when did the book come out?
I do not have it on me right now. I'll look it up.
But basically, like, a long time ago.
Well, at least, you know, a few years. Because there's been a lot of development in a few years.
Yeah, but say more than 10 years ago?
I'll just get us a definite answer on that so we don't
But either way, like, it's hard not to be the jaded, you know, content person because it's like, yeah, we get it. Yeah, TV's the god. Oh, cool. Yeah, I understand.
Yes.
Because even, I know we're jumping around. This is an episode 2 because they even, and was that, I think that was Gillian Anderson?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And then she's like, you know, worship the TV, watch me, look at your screens. It's better than the lamb's blood, you know, like the old sacrificial lamb. And it's like, all right. But then I guess they got this nice callback because it's like they're talking about all these new things, but then she's, you know, Lucy, from I Love Lucy, which no one is watching, so whatever.
Yes, it's the book's from 2001, so I mean it's not ancient or anything, but it is before smartphones.
Okay, fair. Yeah, I mean it's over 15 years old, so I'll give it to him.
Yeah. So he anyway, to get back to where we were, he does accept the job more or less with Wednesday, which takes the rest of the episode because, well, no, wait, what happens? They're on the plane and then he's not on the plane. He's getting to his wife's funeral and then he meets him in a bar, crocodile bar, and that's when
because
he decides.
because he turns him down. Yeah, he turns him down at first because Shadow Moon, who's totally not a god, is just getting out of jail, and you know he needs to. He sees these con man ways, and he's very familiar. He knows a thing or two about it, except which is kind of jarring to me because they have this whole segment where he talks to Mr. Wednesday about better cons. Except earlier when he had issues, his first thought was to like freak out like a weirdo. Like, you know how they had that flash where it's like what he could do or something, but then he gets arrested? Like there was no nuance subtlety. It's not like that didn't show that he was a con man that knew like, okay, we could do, you know, a Gulliver's Twist. You know, they always have like a fucking name for it or whatever.
Yeah.
But his thought was just something like kind of yelling and then getting arrested. So
well, I don't think that was his like master plan or anything, but yeah.
I know, but it was just so weird. It almost, the way the show portrays it, I know he was thinking more about back to his prison and how he wants to be on the straight and narrow, but it was just a weird way. But either way, he turns it down because he's fresh out of jail. He ain't trying to go back. But then, he falls asleep. The plane gets diverted, which again, I assume is Mr. Wednesday acting like a retard to the pilot, I guess, to tell him to land. I was trying not to say retard earlier, but I just said it. Because again, this is another thing that I assume Mr. Wednesday put into play. Like he made it so the plane was diverted and had to land somewhere because again, like now they're in a bar. He could talk to him a little further. He finds out that, you know, his wife and friend died together. And then, you know, things are like amping up, which gets him to accept the job after he goes to his wife's funeral, where we find that she died with another man's cock in her mouth.
Yeah. Which I felt Shadow was, I don't know, you probably didn't feel this, but I felt he was a bit more humanized, and he was a bit more of the only sane man after the funeral anyway, because people are acting crazy all over the place, gods, non-gods, and he's like, what? And even if he's not having a strong reaction, he's the only one keeping his cool in some way, except when he goes and screams off a cliff. So anyway, that's basically where it ends. He fought a leprechaun, got a coin, and drops it on the grave.
Well, which is weird because, like, if he's cool and collected when his wife's dead, and we find out she was basically like cheating on him, it's like, so nothing is gonna touch this guy, you know? I get, because it didn't come off as shock. It didn't come off as like I'm in shock about this. It just came off as like, nah, who cares? She's just my wife. I'm a god. I've lived forever, and I'll never die. So, but yes, that's right. I did gloss over. We meet the leprechaun man who does a lot of coin tricks, and he wins. So he gives them a coin, which is going to play out later, and that's the other thing that Mr. Wednesday does, because Shadow Moon, the big con man that he is, has a trick coin that he's going to be like, all right, I'll flip a coin, and if it's heads, I'll take the job. If it's tails, I don't have to do anything you want. But then Mr. Wednesday, even though it's a rigged coin, he can make it land heads like every time.
Yeah.
So why is this guy going around pretending that like he's a retard when he could make coins flip? He could land planes when he wants. He can make it rain. Enough of this dude.
You said it again, Jim. It's I mean, okay, that's episode 1. Episode 2,
but we forgot VR God that showed up. VR God shows up and he's like, I am the god of all that is VR. I'm gonna put this mask on you and look at me. Yeah, look at me and my PlayStation graphics friends. And then he sends them after, because we're basically getting the hint that Shadow Moon's important. We don't know why. All these gods want a piece of him, but he's with Mr. Wednesday, and he's important to whatever Mr. Wednesday is trying to do. So Robot Mask Man is like, we need to kill him. And then like we get the old like lynching going on, very reminiscent of Things America. Mm-hmm. And then a big bloodbath ensues, either because someone helped him or he has powers. Who knows?
Yeah, I was gonna say that we still don't know what went on there, and that's why I was like jumping over it because I kind of forgot. Like, oh yeah, that happened. Like big bloodbath at the end there that didn't leave a mark at all in our minds because we didn't know, what was real, what to care about. I think as far as other gods, I assume at this point anyway that other gods are like, why is Mr. Wednesday dealing with a mortal or whatever? Who are you? Like, why? That's what I assumed. The interest came from. Gillian Anderson and VR God,
and not knowing what's going on, like when Shadow Moon goes and like yells at the heavens, like I'm thinking that he's
literally yelling at the heavens.
Well, yeah, he's yelling at like his old friend, his old god friend, who's making things bad for him. Because that's the other thing is that, and again, this is me not knowing the source material. I start to see like someone, was his wife not an accident? Was this put in place because Shadow Moon's important? Mm-hmm. These are things that are not clear to me. So Mr. Wednesday killed his wife so he could work for him? Like, I don't fucking know.
Okay. So that's episode 1.
Yeah, then Spider-Man shows up on a slave ship.
Sure.
In episode 2.
Mm-hmm.
And, has like a rousing speech of hopelessness for slaves and gets them to burn it all down because it's with these gods, it's all about worship. It's all, it's manipulation and worship because that's they all kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, that's true. And, well, what did you feel about the scene? Because I hated the jazz part of it. It's something, overall, I haven't been too fond of the music because it's always been, like, super heavy-handed, telling you exactly what to feel, or just distracting in general, where there's, like, a saxophone, like, blasting notes when you're trying to pay attention to the scene. What was your opinion?
I think it mostly worked here because of what Spider-Man's costume was.
Right.
Because he was like dressed like a 70s like pimp or whatever. So I thought it kind of worked.
Well, I was like, what the?
Anansi, but I just call him Spider-Man.
I was like, what is up with this? Like, I know this is stupid and I shouldn't doesn't the answer. I know the answer, but I'm like, that hasn't happened yet. It doesn't make any sense that he's wearing those clothes. He should be the version of that god that existed then. And then obviously you don't need to tell me. Don't comment about how, time isn't linear for gods. But if time isn't linear for gods, then what's even more the point of what's going on? Anyway, he's a spider. He arrives at America like everyone else. And, okay, so he's packing up. Shadow Moon is packing up his old house. And this is a note I made. This show has some weird little visual goofs sometimes that don't really add up. Like there was something pretty funny where he's standing at his house and just a paper boy comes by and throws a paper and it hits his head. But it's like everything's desaturated and gray and like it feels like an episode of Outcast and that's happening. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be feeling right now, guys. And then he packs up stuff and he finds a picture of that guy's cock on like the phone. But then, Jim, tell me what happened next. Does he look up and see a picture of the cock framed?
Oh, yeah, he sees it in the frame, yeah.
What is that?
Yeah, that's right.
Literally, like, what is that? Is that really there? Is it in his mind?
Because they don't give you that moment where he looks back and it's not that picture.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as far as we're concerned, that is the picture that was.
But he doesn't react accordingly. If you see it on the phone, that's one thing. But if you see it on, like, the bedside, he should at least, like, raise his eyebrows. But he's being Shadow Moon. He's being too cool. He's just like, and he keeps packing those boxes.
Well, one thing that we didn't even mention that everyone mentions about this show, we didn't even mention the vagina eating, the man being eaten by a vagina.
Yeah,
and because then it gets doubled down in this episode, I believe, where like men and women are being eaten by the vagina. So I mean, just call that out. It's like there you go, people getting eaten by a vagina.
Yeah,
it's
you gotta mention it. Somehow that's the part that makes the most sense. What did you feel about it? Because I mean, you said before you watched the show, like everything I hear, everyone just keeps talking about this vagina that keeps eating stuff. I don't know what the show's about, Jacob.
Yeah, I'd already heard about that, so it wasn't as like a big of a deal at that point because I'd already heard that people get eaten by a vagina. And at least, it's clear as the scene plays out because, I mean, they're telling you. It's like, just like, worship me. And, it's all about worship and sacrifice. And so there you go. And I assume that means she's some sort of god of like love or lust or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Okay. Eventually, they get to the Russian place. I don't know if that's accurate. Wherever they're from, these people.
They go to Chicago. They're in Chicago, right?
Right.
So yeah, then we meet the sisters. Yeah, the old lady who's like a fortune teller, and they read tea leaves, or they're not tea leaves. I don't know. And then Shadow Moon, it's kind of like they're like, we'll give you a reading, and then they look at it and they're like, ooh, and they're like, you're gonna live a long time and never have anything bad happen to you. And he's like,
he immediately gambles his life away after that.
Yes. Peter Stormare shows up, who's always great.
Yeah, Peter Stormare. Yes.
Is that how you say it properly?
Yeah.
Okay, my bad. And he has some great monologues about the art and the skill of killing and the slaughterhouse and stuff. I enjoy him a lot. So I did enjoy these segments, even though I don't want to say it didn't go anywhere. I mean, because it told us about his character a lot. So and I did enjoy this. And then it comes down to a game of checkers for his life.
Yeah, and I also enjoyed this section more than everything coming before it, and kind of marked the uptick for me where things started to feel a bit better in this show, because before then it's a lot of Shadow and Wednesday, and even though I like their dynamic in a way, like despite all the criticism we were saying earlier, I think they're both fairly good actors, and the thing is they haven't gotten enough to work with. Like, the scenes have been lacking good turning points, good revelations. It just hasn't. It's just been faffing about, really. A load of nonsense, and you end up as frustrated as Shadow. Like, what's going on? No clear answers. But now we get some more characters. It brings things a little more to life. And even the over-the-top Russian music I was okay with. Maybe not Russian, generally Soviet music. Yeah. So I was liking that. And yes, they play checkers for his life, which is the end of the episode, I think.
Yeah, we already had talked about how he has his run-in with the god of TV. And again, these are things I mentioned before, of how like this stuff's all happening to Shadow Moon, but then in the next episode, he's still kind of like,
what?
Yeah, he's like, what are you talking about? This is just real life. This is clearly. And I mean, I guess they do answer the thing about the dick pic, because Shadow does see the hammer bleeding, but then it's clearly not bleeding. So there's something's going on with Shadow Moon. Maybe he was infected by the VR god when he got in his head. But yeah, so Shadow Moon is seeing things, or tapping into some sort of potential that he doesn't know he has.
Which may be phallic related, because that hammer is also pretty phallic when it's spurting blood from the end when he's rubbing it.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, there's something going on with his ring. It's always his ring.
Is there? What's his ring?
I don't know. He's just always looking at it. I guess it's because of his dumb wife, but whatever.
Yeah.
He's just always looking at it and touching it, and they're always like doing close-ups on it and shit like that. Yeah. I mean, then we go to episode 3. We get we start out with a visit from Anubis. I guess it's the death god.
Yeah. And this is one of my, I like this part. It's an old lady who falls off her chair, except she doesn't. And I like the twist there, because you totally expect that she's going to fall, and then it's the knock on the door, and she goes to check, and it's Anubis come to collect her soul, and then you see her dead body on the floor. And it also is nice because in some shows like this, you get in this show too, it's kind of hard to grasp how the world works, and these sort of offshoots into other parts, it really gives you a fuller, better grip on what's going on without diluting it into like having a bunch of different characters doing important stuff. You just get a little glimpse into this part of the world, and I assume that those characters will pop up again later, but it's still just a nice way to round out the world, I think, especially since the main story isn't necessarily doing that super well.
Yeah. Because it's a nice little kind of self-contained thing, lets us know a little bit about the god of death. Ends on kind of a little like, is this a good thing or a bad thing? Because the cat just pushes her in the room.
Yeah.
So it still could be a good thing, might not. I liked what it felt kind of weirdly like just a short film someone would make.
Yeah.
And it could just be its own thing, and that's it. And maybe that's why I liked it, because, you know, I don't care if we ever see any of these characters again. I enjoyed that. On to the next.
Yeah.
But then we get bogged down by Roof's sister looking into space and taking the moon down and giving it to Shadow Moon as a coin, and he's just kind of like, this is real life. I guess in Shadow Moon's defense, it could be a dream because he like wakes up or whatever, but I think they do the old like, but he has the coin still, like later on. Was it a dream? I don't know. Then we cut to, I guess they call them, Somewhere in America vignettes? That's kind of letting you know that it's like its own little thing. And yeah, I do assume that these are going to pay off or connect in some way. Now, because with this, we get our fiery Muslim sex scene. Because some of this stuff just does come off as like shock jockery in a way for this show. Like, it's like they know they're going to be edgy and try to get some of these headlines, because even before I watched...
Yeah, to be fair to them, that is also, like, looking at the reporting on the show, you'd think it was all about these small parts. Like, no one's talking about Shadow.
You're right, because that's what I was going to say, because I actually saw people, like, on a forum, they were like, that sex scene was great. And it's like, was it? I mean, are you that progressive that you're excited for a gay sex scene? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it was fine, I guess. A lot
of people were calling it groundbreaking. You didn't feel it was groundbreaking?
Not really. I mean, I guess.
Well, I also didn't. I didn't think about it too much when I watched it, except like that's kind of hot. You know, that's pretty erotic as far as because you're not if you see gay
literally
sex,
hot.
Yes.
Sorry.
If you see gay sex depicted, it's, male gay sex, it's usually not in an erotic way like this. But at the same time, I don't know, I didn't have like a reaction of like, oh my God, it's happening finally. But I guess it's kind of rare. I guess it doesn't happen that much on TV, or does it?
Sure. I mean, I guess it doesn't. So yeah,
I guess it's good. It did go on for a while. It was justified because it was gratuitous and yet justified. Same way I felt about the vagina swallowing, because it does. I mean, if you look at it from the outside, there's no way you think that this is gonna like add up and make sense and add to the story. But it kind of feels like it all makes sense as far as the world, like almost more than the other stuff in the show. So this was pretty good.
Yeah, it just comes off as like it's. You know, when people are just championing the show because it has this scene, it doesn't quite make it a good show yet.
No, that's true.
It is a good, because now we're getting stuck more in applauding like representation, which is a good thing. It should be applauded, but that doesn't make if that's all you're talking about, then it feels like maybe the show's not that great. But hey, I guess the ends justify the means. So it's neither here nor there. If I can throw in some more colloquialisms here,
sure.
But anyway, so we have and it's a djinn, I guess, which is kind of like a genie.
Yeah. Except he doesn't grant wishes.
Yeah, they make it a point. And he's got fiery eyes, much like the bull had fiery eyes, and he shoots his fire in his asshole. During their sex scene, and
I mean, that is an accurate description. Yes.
Yeah. Although I do. Oh, go ahead.
No, in a like shadow landscape that they transport into that looks again kind of VR night sky. It looks like Tron or something. I don't know. But apparently they were like painted for that. Like they weren't computer animated when the fire was happening. They were actually covered in like paint and stuff. So.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, I mean, I do feel like the placement of his ass and his legs spread, he maybe should have been up a little bit more.
Well, it's funny you should say that, Jim.
The djinn had a sweet cock, so I know he's got the distance, but to get a nice good fuck going on, he probably would have want to have his ass up a little bit more.
True.
What were you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say that they reshot the scene because the actors, the two actors and the director were all straight men, and then the showrunner had a look at it and went like, this would never work. You don't know how gay sex works. So they actually did reshoot it to make it more I think that's what I read anyway, to make it more gay. Specifically, that's what he said. But
I still feel like,
even still, that's what I was going to say. It still feels like on the edge of believable. I know that nice computer-generated animated dick. They didn't animate them in the shadow landscape, but they did computer animate his dick. I guess to make it bigger or for propriety. I don't know. It doesn't look real.
That's not his actual dick. It's they gave him a little digital extension.
First thing I said was, that's not... well, let me check my notes. That Jincock was predictable and computer animated, I wrote.
Well, because, I don't have to be gay to know,
yes, you do. You don't know anything, even, Jim.
Because if I want to be in that missionary position and I want to fuck my girlfriend in the ass,
sure.
I know she's going to have to be propped up a little bit more. And believe me, I'm not packing gin dick, but just still with
just Jim dick,
getting it in. Yeah, just oh my god, that was great. But whatever. Who am I to tell a gay man how he's gonna have sex with his boyfriend, or doesn't even have to be boyfriend? It could be no strings attached. Who am I to say?
Yeah, we're very on board. But I did have the same thought of like, what are the logistics here? Is this adding up? But then they do show him spurting fire inside there in the shadow landscape, so we can assume there's contact.
And then we get some sort of Freaky Friday type moment from their fiery sex, because now the businessman is the cab driver. And I didn't notice this myself, but I did read in one of the breakdowns that I guess in episode 2 you did see the Djinn wearing the blue suit talking to Mr. Wednesday in like the bar or something. So
yes. I remember that now that you said it. Yeah.
I guess there are some little seeds there.
Seeds. Did you understand? Did you get that? He took on he took on the businessman and before, or what did you think first that Djinn?
I just thought he like absorbed him. Like that's.
The show is trying to teach us.
Yeah. Until I read after that we did see the Djinn in the blue suit. That's when I kind of got the idea that they switched in a way.
Mm-hmm.
When I first watched it, I just thought like he absorbed his fire and then the Djinn like took over him or something. That's because I didn't know what else to read from it.
Yeah. Okay. So apart from the two vignettes, we are in this episode dealing a lot with snow, as we were describing earlier, and this second con of them robbing a bank, which again, I assume you felt like, well, he can change coins into other coins. Why can't he just go to a casino or something?
Yeah. Why can't he just learn blackjack or whatever? But yeah, anyways, we see that. I mean, maybe part of it, I guess I could fill it in and be like, maybe the Mr. Wednesday, even as a god with this power, he likes the challenge of doing it that way. I mean, even if not knowing the source material and just thinking he could do whatever he wanted, I could still see there being an explanation in that, it's like, it's not quite like this, but it's like when a rich person wants to go and murder someone in a hostel, because it's like, I just want to do stuff that I don't have to do because just to feel it. But I don't know. It's something like that. And then, he tells, what's his name? Snow Moon? Shadow Moon?
Shadow.
He tells Shadow Moon to think of snow, and then Shadow Moon wakes up, it's snowing. First he thinks of driving on marshmallows in his hot cocoa and all kinds of fucking shit like that.
Moon is his last name, so just Shadow is fine if you want to be friendly with him. But he makes it snow. It's a lot about him making it snow in this episode.
Remember when the car drove on the marshmallows?
I do remember. Now that you bring it up, I do remember.
And then I laughed out loud because then Shadow Moon like sees it snowing and stuff, and then he says, "None of this feels real," and it's like, Shadow Moon, wake up, bro! Like you are like you've promised your head to be smashed by a sledgehammer. You talked to a TV.
You were lynched,
and you had brushes with a VR god. Like it's like, wake up, dude. Like yes, some unreal shit's going on.
Well, you can prepare for next week. I'm sure there will be a lot of, "Are you even here, wife? because it does end on the wife. The
yes.
coffin is empty and his wife is in his motel room. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, we did get some hints. We saw like what happens to a leprechaun when he loses his lucky coin. Like he's now, instead of having all the good luck that he usually has, everything's kind of blowing up in his face.
Yeah.
And it's affecting people around. It's affecting him and people around him because he gets picked up by someone. And the dude from Kids in the Hall who gets a nice pipe through the head. And then it takes him. He still like can't figure out what's going on until a cop or someone's like, "Wow, that's some real bad luck." Bad luck.
What?
Holy shit! My coin. And yeah, I mean, it was kind of, we knew something was going to happen when we see the coin go into the fresh grave. So yeah, then it shows up that the wife is alive. We didn't even talk about in episode 1 how that lady wanted to blow him.
Yeah, that's part of what I was saying when he's more human after that, because he's the only one who's like, let's not have sex on the graves.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, cool, good, Shadow, good choice.
Yeah. Shadow was a good dude.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, weirdly enough, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, weirdly enough, it's like I've had fun discussing this show, and now I'm thinking like, I gotta watch this show. But I definitely had way more fun talking about it than I did watching it. But
well,
like,
that's good, I guess.
But also talking about it, talking it out, it does make me a little bit more interested in what's going on now.
So will you recant what you said at the start?
Yeah, I think maybe I will give it another shot. I know I was a little harsh on it, but you know, it's like, I mean, on one hand, it's a double-edged sword. It's a good thing that I didn't have my girlfriend watch the show with me, because she'd probably fucking hate me. But on the other hand, it's like I'm just sitting there by myself watching this show, and I can't help but be like, what the fuck is this? But then talking to you and hearing your point of view and then talking it out, I start to get a better grasp of what's going on. So at least I think maybe it's piqued my interest a little bit more.
Good. I think it is like the issues you were bringing up are there, but also, and I had like almost all my notes were negative up until like halfway through episode 2, and then episode 3 I kind of liked. So I think I'm definitely gonna watch it and see where it goes, and we can return with more discussion. And hey, it's only 8 episodes. A show can't be that bad in 8. Yeah, 8 episodes
that's
only.
A bad sign. Bad sign.
But speaking of that, I do want to give you a quote from a review in The Guardian, which I saw a lot of very positive reviews. This is one that's still mostly positive, but it said something that I think is relevant to our discussion. It said, in recent months, there have been a number of shows along roughly the same lines. Violent, moody, and handsome, so sure of their own good looks that they lack the inclination to explain anything about themselves. Fans of Legion and Preacher in particular will be happy to add another clever supernatural show to their library, while fans of the book may be delighted that it has found its way to the screen at last, but it may take patience for those viewers who fall somewhere in between.
Wow, that's perfect. Yeah, they pretty much nailed what I was saying.
Yeah.
Damn, I should write for The Guardian.
Yeah, that's exactly what you were saying as well. Well, I think that does sum it up. So we will return to you with more American Gods. Like I said, I was hesitant with the tone of it at first, but it's kind of winning me over. It's still precarious, but here's the great thing. You get to add your comments by leaving them on this post, video, podcast, or just sending it to showswhatyouknow@gmail.com.
Yes. And wow, I can't remember if it's ever happened before where someone, through the span of just a review, had an arc. And I'm telling you, I had a character arc. Wow. Listen to me at the start, listen to me at the end. That's an arc, baby.
That is an arc. If you want more arcing, you should check out jimandthem.com.
Yes, please.
Which is Jim's podcast, comedy podcast. It's coming up on 500 episodes. All you newbie podcasts can go fuck yourself. Yes, everyone has a podcast. Does everyone have a podcast with 500 episodes? I don't think so.
Nope.
I don't.
Nope.
And
you can also find, you can also find more from Jakob Burrows at awesomepedia.org. He's got music, he's got podcasts, he's got videos, he's got art, he's got all kinds of great stuff. Comics, go check it out.
Yes, and we'll see you next time. Later.
We are Shows What You Know. We'll always watch TV. And if you think we can't, Well, watch more and you'll see. That's why the people of the web believe in Jim from Las Vegas and Jacob from Sweden.